The metal walls of New Seoul Station shook as something massive crashed into the outer docking bay. Emergency lights flashed red across the corridors while warning sirens wailed through the air. Workers dropped their tools and ran toward the emergency exits as sparks flew from damaged power lines in the deep maintenance section of the station. Dae-ho Kim barely looked up from his work. He had heard crashes before. Space was full of debris and small meteors that sometimes hit the station shields. His hands stayed busy fixing a broken gravity generator that had been giving him trouble for 3 days. The workshop around him was a mess of spare parts and half-finished projects. Old ship engines sat in corners waiting for repairs. Broken computers lined the walls with their circuits exposed. Tools hung from hooks everywhere while oil stains covered the metal floor. This was Dae-ho's world, and he liked it exactly as it was. Another crash shook the station harder this time. Dae-ho frowned and put down his plasma torch. That did not sound like space debris. The lights flickered and went out for a moment before the backup power kicked in. Something was very wrong. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors outside. His workshop, but these were not human footsteps. They sounded too big and too heavy. Each step made the floor vibrate under Dae-ho's feet. He grabbed a large wrench from his tool belt and moved toward the door. The footsteps stopped right outside his workshop. Dae-ho held his breath and listened carefully. He could hear something breathing on the other side of the metal door. It was slow and deep, like the sound a large animal might make. But what kind of animal could be walking around the station? Suddenly the door exploded inward. Metal pieces flew across the room as something enormous pushed through the opening. Dae-ho jumped backward and raised his wrench, but stopped when he saw what stood in his doorway. A dragon filled the entire entrance to his workshop. But this was not like the dragons from old Earth stories. This creature was real and alien and beautiful in a terrifying way. Her scales were deep blue like ocean water, but they seemed to glow with their own inner light. She stood 12 feet tall on powerful legs that ended in claws as long as Dae-ho's arm. Her head was massive with intelligent golden eyes that looked directly at him. 2 large wings folded against her back while a long tail swept behind her. But something was wrong with her appearance. Her scales looked dull in places, and her great head hung low with exhaustion. In her front claws, she held something small and precious. It was a baby dragon no bigger than a house cat. The little creature's scales were pale and lifeless. Its tiny chest barely moved as it struggled to breathe. The baby dragon was clearly dying. The mother dragon looked at Dae-ho with desperate eyes. When she spoke, her voice was deep and musical, but filled with pain. She struggled with the human language as she tried to make him understand. "Please help my child," she said in broken words. "He is dying and I do not know what to do. The healers of my people cannot save him. I have traveled far to find someone who can fix what is broken." Dae-ho stared at the 2 dragons in shock. He had never seen an alien before, let alone one asking for his help. The mother dragon's eyes were full of tears that sparkled like liquid diamonds as they fell to the floor. "I am Velthara of the Star Winds," she continued. "This is my son Korthek. He is all I have left in this universe. Please do not let him die." The baby dragon made a weak sound like a kitten crying. Dae-ho could see that whatever was wrong with the little creature was getting worse by the minute. Its breathing was becoming more shallow, and its tiny claws were starting to lose their grip on life. "I'm just a repairman," Dae-ho said carefully. "I fix machines and engines. I don't know anything about dragons or alien medicine." Velthara stepped closer, and Dae-ho could feel the heat coming from her massive body. Despite her size, she moved with careful grace to avoid breaking anything in his cluttered workshop. "My people have forgotten how to heal ourselves," she said with sadness in her voice. "We only know the old ways that do not work anymore. But humans are different. Humans can fix anything. They look at problems in new ways. They do not give up when something seems impossible." She gently placed the dying baby dragon on Dae-ho's workbench between a broken computer and some spare engine parts. The little creature looked so small and fragile next to all the metal and machinery. "His heart is failing," Velthara explained. It is not like your human hearts. It is part living tissue and part crystal technology. The two parts work together to keep him alive, but something has gone wrong. The connection is breaking down. Deho moved closer to examine the baby dragon. He could see a soft glow coming from inside the creature's chest. Through the translucent scales, he could make out something that looked like a combination of organic tissue and glowing crystal structures. I have never seen anything like this, he admitted. How do you expect me to fix something I don't understand? Because you will try, Velthara said simply. My people would be afraid to touch something so sacred, but humans are not afraid to take things apart and see how they work. That is what my son needs. Someone who is not afraid to try new things. The baby dragon's breathing became even more labored. Time was running out, and Deho found himself faced with an impossible choice. He could refuse to help and watch the little creature die, or he could attempt something that had never been done before and risk making things worse. Looking into Velthara's desperate golden eyes, Deho made his decision. He picked up his medical scanner and began examining the dying baby dragon. I'll try, he said quietly, but I can't promise anything. For the first time since crashing into his workshop, Velthara smiled. It was an expression of hope mixed with gratitude that transformed her entire face. The most important repair job of Deho's life was about to begin. Deho held his medical scanner over the baby dragon's chest and watched the readings with growing confusion. The device was designed to analyze human biology, but what it showed him made no sense at all. The scanner kept switching between different readings as if it could not decide what it was looking at. This is strange, he muttered while adjusting the scanner settings. Sometimes it reads like living tissue and sometimes like advanced machinery. It's as if your son is part animal and part computer. Velthara moved closer to watch Deho work. Her massive head cast a shadow over the workbench, but she was careful not to block the light he needed. That is exactly what he is, she explained in her deep musical voice. All of my people are born this way. We are living creatures, but we also carry crystal technology inside our bodies. The two parts must work together or we die. Deho set down his scanner and picked up a different tool. This one could see deeper into objects and show their internal structure. When he pointed it at baby Korthek, the screen filled with an amazing image. Inside the tiny dragon's chest was a heart unlike anything Deho had ever seen. Part of it was made of flesh and blood like a normal heart, but wrapped around the organic. Parts were threads of pure crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The crystals pulsed in rhythm with the heartbeat, creating a beautiful but alien sight. How is this possible? Deho asked in wonder. How can living tissue and crystal work together like this? It is the way my people have always been, Velthara said sadly, but we no longer understand how it works. Long ago our ancestors knew the secrets of biocrystal technology. They could repair and improve our bodies when things went wrong. But that knowledge was lost many generations ago. Deho studied the scanner readings more carefully. He could see that some of the crystal threads were dark and lifeless. They had stopped glowing and were no longer connected to the living parts of the heart. This was clearly what was killing the baby dragon. So what do your people do now when someone gets sick? He asked while making notes on his tablet. We have healers who perform the old rituals, Velthara replied. They sing the ancient songs and hope the crystals will respond. Sometimes it works for minor problems. But when something serious goes wrong like this, we can only watch and pray. As Deho continued his examination, he noticed something else troubling in the scanner readings. The crystal damage was not random or accidental. The pattern looked deliberate, as if someone had carefully designed it to cause maximum harm. Velthara, he said slowly, I don't think your son's heart failed naturally. Someone did this to him on purpose. The dragon mother's golden eyes flashed with anger and her scales seemed to glow brighter. What do you mean? She demanded. Look at this pattern, Deho said, pointing to his tablet screen. The crystal damage follows specific pathways. It's designed to spread through the biocrystal network and shut down vital functions. This looks like some kind of virus or poison made specifically to attack your people. Velthara let out a roar of rage that shook the entire workshop. Tools fell from their hooks and loose parts scattered across the floor. When she spoke again, her voice was filled with deadly fury. "The Korvani?" she snarled. "They have found a way to poison our children." "Who are the Korvani?" Deho asked while trying to calm the angry dragon. "They are a warrior race that seeks to control our part of the galaxy," Velthara explained. "For years they have tried to defeat my people in battle, but our biocrystal technology makes us very difficult to kill. So now they attack our children instead." She began pacing around the small workshop as much as the space would allow. Her massive claws left scratches in the metal floor, and her tail knocked over a stack of spare parts. "They have been targeting our nursery worlds," she continued. "Dozens of hatchlings have died from this mysterious illness. Our healers tried everything, but nothing worked. That is why I came looking for human help." Deho felt a cold anger growing in his chest. The idea of someone deliberately poisoning children filled him with rage. He looked down at the tiny dragon on his workbench and made a silent promise to save the innocent creature. "How long has Korthik been sick?" he asked. 3 days, Velthara replied. "The poison works slowly at first, but then spreads quickly at the end. Most hatchlings die within 4 days of showing symptoms." That meant they had less than 24 hours to find a cure. Deho felt the pressure of time weighing on his shoulders, but he pushed the fear aside and focused on the problem. "I need help," he said finally. "This is too complex for one person to solve alone. Do you mind if I call in some colleagues?" Velthara nodded eagerly. "Bring anyone who might be able to help my son." Deho activated his communication device and sent urgent messages to 2 people he trusted completely. The first was So Young Park, his partner who worked in the next workshop over. She was the best mechanic on the station and could fix anything with moving parts. The second message went to Dr. Haijin Lee, who worked in the station's science laboratory. She was a xenobiologist who specialized in studying alien life forms. If anyone could understand how dragon biology worked, it would be her. Within minutes, both women arrived at his workshop. So Young took one look at the massive dragon and reached for her emergency communicator, but Deho quickly stopped her. "They're here for help, not to cause trouble," he explained quickly. "This baby is dying, and we might be the only ones who can save him." Dr. Lee immediately moved to examine the small dragon with professional curiosity. She pulled out her own scanning equipment and began taking detailed readings. "This is incredible," she breathed. "I've never seen biological and technological systems integrated so perfectly. How do the crystals interface with the organic tissue?" That's what we need to figure out," Deho said. "And we need to do it fast." The 3 humans gathered around the dying baby dragon and began the most important work of their lives. Dr. Haijin Lee stared at her scanner readings with amazement. The baby dragon's biocrystal heart was more complex than anything she had studied in 20 years of xenobiology research. The way living tissue and crystal technology worked together defied everything she knew about how biology and machines should interact. "This is impossible," she whispered while taking more detailed scans. "The crystals are not just attached to the heart tissue. They are actually grown into it at the molecular level. It's like the dragon was born with a computer for a heart." So Young Park was examining the crystals from an engineering perspective. She had worked with crystal technology before, but never anything this advanced. Her tools could barely detect the energy patterns flowing through the tiny structures. "The crystals seem to be running some kind of program," So Young said while adjusting her equipment. "They are processing information and sending commands to the organic parts of the heart. But the program is corrupted somehow." Velthara watched the 3 humans work with growing hope. Her people had always approached their biocrystal technology with reverence and fear. The ancient crystals were considered sacred, and no dragon would dare to take them apart or study them too closely. But these humans were different. They poked and prodded and asked endless questions. They treated the amazing technology like an Interesting puzzle to be solved rather than a sacred mystery to be worshipped. In my culture, we believe the crystals contain the spirits of our ancestors, Valthara explained. To study them too closely would be disrespectful to the dead. So, we only learn the basic rituals needed to keep them functioning. Deho looked up from his work with surprise. But how can you maintain something if you don't understand how it works? What happens when the rituals stop being effective? Then we pray harder, Valthara said sadly. And usually we die, Dr. Lee shook her head in disbelief. These crystals are not magical or spiritual. They are incredibly advanced biotechnology. Your ancestors were not just spiritual beings. They were brilliant scientists and engineers. She pointed to her scanner display, which showed the internal structure of the crystal network. Look at this design. It's more sophisticated than our best quantum computers. The crystals can store massive amounts of information and process it at incredible speeds. At the same time, they interface perfectly with biological systems. So Young had connected her tools directly to one of the damaged crystal threads. Data flowed across her screens as she tried to understand how the system worked. The crystals are definitely running a program, she confirmed. It looks like biological control software. The crystals monitor the dragon's body functions and make adjustments to keep everything working properly. It's like having a doctor and a computer built right into your body. Deho was studying the poison that had damaged baby Korthek's heart. The malicious code was elegant in its cruelty. It was designed to slowly corrupt the crystal programming while leaving the organic tissue mostly intact. This created maximum suffering as the dragon's body slowly lost the ability to function properly. Whoever created this poison knew exactly how dragon biology works, he said grimly. They understand the crystal technology better than your own people do. The Korvani have been studying captured dragons for years, Valthara admitted. They dissect our dead and perform experiments on prisoners. We always thought they were just being cruel, but now I see they were learning how to destroy us. Dr. Lee had been running analysis programs on her computer to understand the crystal structure. Suddenly, she looked up with excitement. I think I know how to fix this, she announced. The crystals use quantum entanglement to share information across the entire network. If we can isolate the corrupted sections and replace them with clean programming, we might be able to save him. So Young frowned as she studied the technical details. But where do we get clean programming? We don't have any undamaged dragon crystals to copy from. We don't need dragon crystals, Deho said with a growing smile. We can write our own programming. Human code that does the same job but uses different methods. Valthara looked shocked at the suggestion. You want to put human technology inside my son's body? That has never been done before. What if the two systems are not compatible? We won't know until we try, Dr. Lee said confidently. But I think it might work better than the original programming. Human code is designed to be flexible and adaptive. It can learn and improve itself over time. The three humans began working. Together with incredible speed and efficiency, Dr. Lee analyzed the biological requirements while So Young designed the replacement code. Deho prepared the tools they would need to perform the delicate surgery. As they worked, baby Korthek's condition continued to worsen. His breathing became more shallow and the glow from his crystals grew dimmer, but the humans pressed on with determination that amazed Valthara. Why are you doing this? She asked. My son is not human. You owe us nothing. Yet you risk your careers and possibly your lives to save him. Deho looked up from his work with serious eyes. Because it's the right thing to do. And because we believe every problem has a solution if you just think about it the right way. So Young nodded in agreement. Besides, we're curious to see if this will actually work. If we can successfully combine human and dragon technology, it could revolutionize medicine for both our species. Dr. Lee was already preparing the surgical tools they would need. We're going to save your son, she said with quiet confidence. And when we do, the galaxy is going to be a very different place? The most ambitious medical procedure in history was about to begin. The surgery had been underway for 6 hours when the first explosions shook New Seoul Station. Emergency alarms blared through the corridors as the station's defensive shields activated. Through the workshop windows, Daeho could see bright flashes of weapons fire lighting up the darkness of space. "What's happening out there?" So-young asked without looking up from her delicate work. She was carefully installing human-designed circuits into baby Korthak's crystal heart network. One wrong move could kill the tiny dragon instantly. Dr. Lee checked her communication device and her face went pale. "Korvani battle fleet. They're demanding we surrender Velthara and her son. If we refuse, they'll destroy the entire station." Velthara let out a roar of anger that rattled the walls. "They followed me here. Now innocent humans will die because of me." "How many ships?" Daeho asked while continuing to work on the baby dragon's heart. His hands never stopped moving even as explosions grew louder outside. 15 heavy cruisers and twice as many fighters, Dr. Lee reported. "Our defense fleet has only 3 ships. We can't fight them." The workshop lights flickered as another blast hit the station's outer hull. Velthara began pacing back and forth like a caged animal. Her massive claws scraped furrows in the metal floor while her tail lashed with frustrated rage. "I should go to them," she said desperately. "If I surrender myself, they might spare the station." "And let them kill your son," So-young said firmly. "Not going to happen. We're almost finished with the surgery." Station Commander Captain Tae-jun Han's voice echoed through the communication system. His words were calm, but everyone could hear the tension underneath. "This is New Seoul Station to the Korvani fleet. We do not recognize your authority in human space. The refugees under our protection will not be surrendered." The response came immediately in a harsh alien voice that spoke perfect standard language. "This is Commander Vorkal of the Korvani Imperial Navy. You are harboring criminals who have violated the natural order. Surrender them now or face the consequences." Another explosion shook the station, and this time the lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, but the workshop was now lit only by dim red safety lights. "I can barely see what I'm doing," Dr. Lee complained as she tried to continue her part of the surgery. "If the power goes out again, we'll lose him." Daeho activated a portable work light and aimed it at the baby dragon's chest. "Then we work faster. How much more time do you need?" "At least 2 more hours," So-young replied. "The crystal network is incredibly complex. If I rush this, the human and dragon systems won't integrate properly." Outside the workshop, they could hear people running through the corridors. Some were heading for escape pods while others moved toward their battle stations. The station was preparing for a fight it could not win. Captain Han's voice came over the communication system again. "All civilian personnel report to emergency shelters. This is not a drill. Military personnel to battle stations." "We should evacuate," Dr. Lee said nervously. "If the station is destroyed, we all die anyway." "No," Velthara said firmly. "You must finish what you started. My son's life is worth more than my own. And if you can save him, you might be able to save other dragon children as well." Daeho made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "Dr. Lee, you and So-young take Korthak to the emergency shelter. Continue the surgery there. I'm staying here." "What are you talking about?" So-young demanded. "Why would you stay here?" "Because someone needs to help defend the station," Daeho explained while gathering his tools. "Captain Han is going to need every technical person he can get. The Korvani might try to board us." Before anyone could argue with him, Daeho was running toward the door. "Keep my son alive," he called back to the others. "I'll buy you as much time as I can." Velthara watched him go with amazement. Here was a human who had never met her before today. Yet he was willing to risk his life to protect her child and give the surgery time to succeed. Dr. Lee and So-young carefully moved baby Korthak to a portable surgical table. The tiny dragon was still unconscious, but his crystal heart was starting to show signs of improvement. The human programming was beginning to integrate with the dragon. Bio-systems. As they rushed toward the emergency shelter, another massive explosion rocked the station. This time pieces of debris fell from the ceiling and sparks flew from damaged power conduits. "The shields are failing," Dr. Lee said while checking her scanner readings. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We're running out of time." In the emergency shelter, dozens of humans huddled together while the battle raged outside. Many of them stared in fear and wonder at the Dragon Mother and her tiny child. Few humans had ever seen a living dragon before. So Young set up her equipment and continued working on Korthik's heart. The integration process was almost complete, but it required absolute precision. One mistake would undo hours of careful work. "The human programming is adapting faster than I expected," she reported with growing excitement. "It's learning how to communicate with the dragon biosystems. This might actually work." Velthara knelt beside the surgical table and gently touched her son's tiny head. "He looks stronger," she whispered hopefully. "His scales are getting their color back." Outside the shelter, the sounds of battle were growing closer. They could hear weapon fire in the corridors as Corvani soldiers fought their way through the station's defenses. "How long until the surgery is finished?" Dr. Lee asked urgently. 15 more minutes, So Young replied. "Maybe 10 if everything goes perfectly." The shelter doors suddenly burst open and 3 Corvani warriors pushed inside. They were tall reptilian creatures with gray scales and yellow eyes. Advanced weapons were clutched in their clawed hands. "Nobody move," the lead warrior shouted. "We are here for the dragon criminals. Surrender them and the rest of you will live." Velthara rose to her full height and spread her wings wide. Even weakened by exhaustion and grief, she was an impressive sight. Her golden eyes blazed with protective fury as she positioned herself between the soldiers and her child. "You will not touch my son," she growled in a voice like distant thunder. The most important 10 minutes of their lives had just begun. The lead Corvani warrior raised his weapon toward Velthara, but hesitated when he saw the tiny dragon on the surgical table. His yellow eyes widened with surprise as he noticed the human medical equipment connected to the baby's chest. "What are you doing to the hatchling?" he demanded suspiciously. "Saving his life," Dr. Lee replied without looking up from her work. Her hands remained steady as she made final adjustments to the bio-crystal integration system. The Corvani warrior laughed harshly. "Impossible. The genetic poison cannot be cured. We made sure of that when we designed it." So Young's fingers flew over her control panel as she completed the last connections in baby Korthik's hybrid heart. "You designed the poison to attack dragon technology? But we replaced the dragon programming with human code." "Humans cannot create biocrystal technology," another Corvani soldier scoffed. "Your species is too primitive to understand such advanced systems." At that moment, something amazing happened. Baby Korthak's eyes opened for the first time in days. The tiny dragon lifted his head and looked around the shelter with bright, intelligent eyes. His scales began to glow with healthy blue light that grew stronger by the second. "Korthak," Velthara whispered with joy and amazement. Her son was not just alive. He looked stronger and more vibrant than he had ever been before. The baby dragon tried to stand on shaky legs. When he succeeded, his mother let out a cry of happiness that echoed through the shelter. But something was different about little Korthak. His scales seemed to shimmer with new colors, and his eyes held an intelligence that had not been there before. "The integration worked better than we hoped," So Young said with excitement. "The human programming is not just replacing the damaged systems, it's enhancing them." Baby Korthak looked at the Corvani soldiers and tilted his head curiously. When he spoke, his voice was clear and strong despite his tiny size. "You are the ones who made me sick," he said in perfect standard language. "Why did you try to kill me?" The Corvani soldiers stepped backward in shock. Dragon hatchlings were not supposed to be able to speak for several years. This baby was demonstrating abilities that should have been impossible. Velthara was undergoing changes as well. Seeing what the humans had accomplished through knowledge and curiosity, rather than fear and ritual, had awakened something in her ancient mind. For the first time in her 1,000-year life, she began to truly understand her own biocrystal technology. "Dr. Lee," she said urgently, Can you enhance my systems the same way you helped my son? We don't have time for surgery, Dr. Lee replied, while checking her scanners. But I can give you temporary upgrades through your existing crystal network. She quickly attached several human devices to contact points on Velthara-S scales. The Dragon Mother gasped as new programming flowed into her biocrystals. Her scales began to glow brighter while energy crackled around her massive form. I can feel the difference, Velthara said with wonder. I understand things about my own body that I never knew before. The humans have shown me what my people could become. The Kovani soldiers realized they were facing something they had never encountered before. A dragon enhanced with human technology was beyond their experience or their ability to handle. This is impossible, their leader said fearfully. Dragons cannot be improved. They are already at the peak of biological development. That's where you're wrong, Velthara replied. Her voice now carried harmonics that made the air itself vibrate with power. My people stopped growing because we stopped learning. But these humans have reminded us that there is always room for improvement. She turned toward the shelter wall that faced toward space. Her enhanced senses could detect the Corvani fleet. Through the station's hull? With her new understanding of biocrystal technology, she could do things no dragon had ever done before. Velthara took a deep breath and exhaled a stream of energy that cut through the station wall like paper. But instead of causing decompression, the energy formed a protective barrier that kept the air inside while allowing her to see out into space. The Corvani fleet hung in space like a collection of deadly predators. Their weapons were charging for a final attack that would destroy New Sol Station completely. But they had not planned on facing a dragon with human-enhanced capabilities. Stay with my son, Velthara told the humans. I have work to do. She leaped through the hole in the station wall and spread her wings in the vacuum of space. Dragons could survive in space for short periods, but Velthara found she could now do much more than just survive. Her enhanced biocrystals converted cosmic radiation into usable energy while her improved nervous system processed information. At incredible speeds, she could see every ship in the Corvani fleet and track their movements with perfect accuracy when she breathed her quantum fire. It was not the wild, destructive force of ancient dragons. Instead, it was precisely controlled energy that could target specific systems without destroying entire ships. She disabled weapons rather than killing crews whenever possible. The Corvani fleet found itself under attack by something they could not understand or counter. Their sensors could barely track Velthara as she moved through space with impossible grace and speed. All ships concentrate fire on the dragon, Commander Vorkal ordered desperately. Use maximum power. But their weapons could not hit a target that seemed to know where they would fire before they pulled the triggers. Velthara-S human-enhanced reflexes allowed her to dodge attacks that would have been impossible to avoid before. Inside the station baby, Korthek was standing on his mother's back watching the battle through the hole in the wall. His enhanced intelligence allowed him to understand exactly what was happening. Mother is winning, he announced happily. The bad ships are running away. Dr. Lee and So Young watched in amazement as half the Corvani fleet began retreating toward the edge of the system. The remaining ships found their weapon systems mysteriously failing as Velthara's precisely aimed fire disabled them one by one. Commander Vorkal's flagship was the last to surrender. His voice came over the communication channels filled with fear and confusion. What have you done to yourself, dragon? He demanded. This power is not natural. Velthara's reply carried clearly across space enhanced by her biocrystal systems. I have learned to see my own potential, and I have learned that the greatest strength comes from cooperation rather than conquest. The battle was over, but the real changes were just beginning. 3 months after the battle word had spread across the galaxy about the miracle on New Sol Station, ships arrived daily carrying representatives from dozens of different species. They all came seeking the same thing, help from the humans, who could enhance alien technology beyond what anyone thought possible. Deho's small repair workshop had been transformed into the Interspecies Technology Institute. The building now occupied an entire deck of the station with laboratories and research facilities that rivaled the best universities in human space, but the real changes were not in the buildings or equipment. They were in the way different species had begun working together. Valthara had established the first dragon embassy on a human world. Her people were slowly learning to question their ancient traditions and explore their own capabilities. Young dragons arrived daily to study with human engineers and scientists. Baby Korthek had grown considerably in the past 3 months. He was now the size of a large dog, and his intelligence continued to develop at an amazing rate. He spent his days learning from human teachers while also teaching them about dragon biology and culture. The integration between human and dragon technology is stable, Dr. Lee reported during their weekly progress meeting. Korthek shows no signs of rejection or system conflicts. If anything, he seems to be getting stronger every day. The little dragon was perched on a chair that had been specially made for his size. His scales now showed colors that had never been seen in dragons before, swirls of blue and silver that seemed to shift and change as he moved. "I can feel both technologies working together inside me," Korthek said in his clear young voice. "The dragon crystals store and process information, while the human programming helps me use that information in new ways." So Young was reviewing data from their latest project. A delegation of Altarian scientists had brought them a problem with their quantum computers that had been unsolvable for decades. "We solved the Altarian problem yesterday," she announced with satisfaction. "Turns out they were approaching quantum entanglement from completely the wrong angle. Once we showed them the human method, they were able to fix their entire computer network." This had become the pattern at the Institute. Alien species would arrive with problems they had struggled with for years or even centuries. The human approach of questioning everything and trying new solutions would often provide breakthroughs in days or weeks. Captain Tae-jun Han had been promoted to admiral and put in charge of interspecies relations for the entire sector. He visited the Institute regularly to check on their progress and coordinate with the various alien delegations. "The Corvani situation is interesting," he reported during today's meeting. "Their empire is having serious internal problems. Many of their subject worlds have heard about what happened here, and they want human assistance as well." Velthara looked up from the crystal matrix she was studying. Over the past months, she had learned more about her own biology than any dragon in recorded history. She could now modify her biocrystals at will and had developed abilities that seemed almost magical. "What kind of assistance do they want?" she asked carefully. The dragons had not forgotten that the Corvani had tried to murder their children. "Medical help mostly," Admiral Han replied. "It turns out the Corvani have been using stolen dragon technology for decades, but they never really understood how it worked. Now their biosystems are failing and they don't know how to fix them." Dr. Lee leaned back in her chair with a thoughtful expression. "So they want us to repair technology they stole from the dragons they tried to kill." "The irony is pretty obvious," Daeho agreed. "But maybe this is an opportunity for real peace. If we can help them solve their medical problems, they might stop being so aggressive." Young Korthak had been listening to the conversation with the serious attention he gave to everything. Despite his age, he often provided insights that surprised. "The adults, the Corvani, are afraid," he said simply. "They attack others because they think it makes them strong, but really it just makes them weaker." "What do you mean?" Admiral Han asked with interest. "They could have asked the dragons for help with their technology," Korthik explained. "Instead, they tried to steal it and use it without understanding it. Now they have big problems, and they still don't want to admit they made mistakes." Velthara smiled proudly at her son's wisdom. He is right. The Corvani chose conquest over cooperation. That is why their technology fails while ours improves. Daeho stood up and walked to the large window that looked out into space. Dozens of ships from different worlds hung in orbit around New Sol Station. Each one represented a species that had decided to try the human approach to solving problems. "Maybe that's what we should call ourselves," he said thoughtfully. "The Cooperation Alliance?" Species that work together instead of fighting each other? I like that name, So Young said with enthusiasm. It describes what we're really trying to accomplish here. Dr. Lee was already making notes on her tablet. We should make it official. Draw up a charter that explains our principles and goals. Make it clear that membership is open to any species willing to share knowledge and work peacefully with others. Over the following weeks, delegations from 47 different worlds signed the Cooperation Alliance Charter. The document was simple but revolutionary in its approach to interspecies relations. The Alliance promised to share technology and knowledge freely among its members. Problems would be solved through cooperation rather than conquest. Differences would be settled through discussion and compromise rather than warfare. Most importantly, the Alliance committed to helping any species that asked for assistance regardless of their past actions. Even former enemies could join if they were willing to abandon aggressive behavior and contribute to the common good. The Corvani Empire eventually collapsed as world after world left to join the Cooperation Alliance. Commander Vorkal himself arrived at New Sol Station 6 months after the battle to request medical assistance for his people. Deho treated the former enemy with the same careful attention he gave to every patient. As he worked to repair the Corvani's failing biosystems, he explained the human philosophy that had made everything possible. We believe every problem has a solution, he said while calibrating his medical equipment. But finding that solution usually requires help from others. Nobody is smart enough to solve everything alone. Valthara and Korthak had returned to their homeworld, but they visited the Institute regularly. The dragon people were experiencing a renaissance of learning and discovery as they rediscovered their own capabilities. Young dragons now spent years studying with different species before returning home to share their knowledge. The ancient rituals were being replaced with true understanding of biocrystal technology. On the first anniversary of baby Korthak's surgery, the entire institute gathered to celebrate. Representatives from over 100 worlds attended the ceremony. To honor the day that changed the galaxy, Korthak had grown into a magnificent young dragon whose scales shimmered with colors that had never existed before. When he spoke to the gathered crowd, his words carried the wisdom of both dragon and human cultures. 1 year ago, I was dying because different peoples refused to work together, he said in a voice that filled the great hall. Today I am alive and strong because someone was willing to try something new. He looked directly at Deho, who was sitting in the front row with his original team. You saved my life not just with your skills, but with your curiosity. You showed us that the best solutions come from the most unexpected partnerships. Deho stood up and smiled at the young dragon who had become like a son to him. You're welcome, little brother. But remember that we all saved each other that day. As the celebration continued late into the night, ships from dozens of worlds could be seen through the windows. Each one carried beings who had chosen cooperation over conquest and knowledge over fear. The galaxy would never be the same, and it was better for the change.